John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in Boston 43 years ago of an immigrant Irish Catholic family that had grown rich. They sent him to an expensive private school and to Harvard. As a sailor in World War II, he won the Purple Heart for rescuing his MTV crew in the Pacific. Senator Kennedy, he's represented his home state of Massachusetts since 1952, and his half-French wife, Jackie, herself an heiress, have one 3-year-old daughter, Caroline. Another child's expected soon. In the late summer of this year, the Kennedys took a brief holiday on the Massachusetts coast. Ahead lay the campaign. Behind, the months and even years of campaigning for the chance to campaign, nomination as the Democratic Party's candidate. They spent their holiday in the style to which they're accustomed. Kennedy's obvious wealth has been one of 3 disadvantages he's had to contend with. Kennedy and Cardinal Spellman. The second drawback, he'd be the first Catholic president.
I would think that there is really only one issue involved in the whole question of a candidate's religion. That is, does the candidate believe in the Constitution? Does he believe in the First Amendment? Does he believe in the separation of church and state? Now, when the candidate's given his views on that question, and I think I've given my view very fully, I think the subject's exhausted.
A third drawback has been his youthful appearance, especially noticeable on a trip with his wife to Anchorage in the new state of Alaska early in the campaign. In New York on Independence Day, Kennedy had already answered his critics on this point.
To exclude from positions of trust and command all those below the age of 44 would have kept Jefferson from writing the Declaration of Independence, Washington from commanding the Continental Army, Madison from fathering the Constitution, Hamilton from serving as Secretary of the Treasury, Clay from being elected Speaker of the House, and Christopher Columbus from even discovering America. But I do not believe the American people are willing to impose any such test. For this is still a young country, founded by young men 184 years ago today, and it is still young in heart, youthful in spirit, and blessed with new young leaders in both parties, in both houses of Congress, and governor's chairs throughout the country. The strength and health and vigor of these young men is equally needed in the White House.
By September, the campaign was warming up. Enthusiastic party workers and enormous crowds greeted the Democratic candidate. A special train served as a mobile speaking platform. Kennedy seemed to like his first taste of whistle-stopping. So did the crowds. Senator Douglas of Illinois said that Kennedy's female following fell into 5 categories: touchers, huggers, shriekers, jumpers, and lopers who ran along the side. His theme throughout has been the effort needed to restore to America the moral leadership of the world. In all his speeches, he's returned to this theme.
They're also concerned that the United States continues to hold aloft the torch of liberty, that it holds to those countries who are now held captive behind the Iron Curtain, the determination that we will not recognize the situation which now exists behind the Iron Curtain as a permanent one, that we believe in the right of self-determination for all people, that we believe that these people must someday be free. This is a concept which this country has held throughout its entire history. Thomas Jefferson once said the disease of liberty is catching, and we believe it's going to catch behind the Iron Curtain. We believe these people are going to be free. And we think that as long as the United States maintains this position, then the hope for freedom for these people behind the Iron Curtain, now held captive, will continue.
Although by 1952 it was obvious that Africa was on the march, we ignored these nations until events forced it upon us. Our State Department did not establish a Bureau of African Affairs until 1957. And that same year, we sent more Foreign Service officers to Western Germany than all of Africa. Even today, barely 5% of our Foreign Service personnel is stationed in Africa. And 5 newly independent nations have no representation at all. And yet they have a vote at the United Nations. When Guinea became independent, it took us 2 months to recognize the new government and 8 months to send an ambassador. Russia's ambassador was there on Independence Day with offers of trade and aid. And today, we know what's happening in Guinea. These failures represent a steady decline of American prestige and influence in Africa, and a steady growth of Soviet influence. Governor Rockefeller suggested that prestige, that we shouldn't spend so much time on whether people love us. That's not the issue. The question is, do they want to duplicate our example? Do they want to follow in the road of freedom? That's the significance of the word prestige. Does freedom have prestige? Not merely Americans, not whether we're personally loved, but do what we stand for, is that loved? Is that admired? That's really the question involved in that issue. If we are to create an atmosphere, I cannot believe that in the most revolutionary age that the world has ever known, in science, technology, in outer space, in the minds of men around the globe, I cannot believe that the American people are going to give their endorsement to a political party which says, you've never had it so good, which endorses the status quo, which endorses the past, which says that everything that is necessary to be done is being done. I cannot believe that the American people will not say that in these changing times, in these times of revolution, in these times of forward motion around the world, I believe that the Democratic Party is best suited to lead in those times.
The site to which the late President Kennedy was coming when he was gunned down by Lee Harvey Oswald last November. The skies were gray, there was a chill in the air as ceremony started in front of the Trade Mart this afternoon. A monument to the memory of the late president was being unveiled. Atop the monument, a companion piece to the famed eagle that is the lectern at Coventry Cathedral in England. The dedicatory words in Dallas today were spoken by the Bishop of Coventry, the Right Reverend Cuthbert Bardsley.
And the greatest expression of gratitude that we can ever give to that man is that we shall ensure that we shall live out the high ideals for which he stood, and that we shall ensure that never again shall the world suffer from the tragedy of war, but that we shall build a family of nations built upon real brotherhood and trust. As the eagle soars into the air, so may we believe that the soul of John Kennedy has soared into life and into eternity. May this eagle point the way.
At the base of the monument, these words, placed in memorial by the friends of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who awaited his arrival at the Dallas Trade Mart November 22nd, 1963. Emblazoned across the foot of the pillar, these words of the English poet William Blake. When thou seest an eagle, thou seest a portion of genius. Lift up thy head. This is Eddie Barker in Dallas.